Hi, my name's Jessica. I did my project on cystic fibrosis. I will start out by saying my slides are pretty information dense, which is not typically my style, but I just want to make sure that everything was on there, and if anybody needed any information or resources, that it was available to you. So let's go ahead and take a look. Cystic fibrosis, or CF, is the most common fatal genetic disease in the U.S. It's due to a mutation in the cystic fibrosis transmembrane regulator gene, or the CFTR gene. The gene was discovered back in 1989, and over 1,000 different mutations in the gene have been identified to cause cystic fibrosis. Looking at prevalence, it is most prevalent in the white population, commonly found in northwestern Europe, up in England, Scotland, Ireland. So it's also more prevalent in the white population in the U.S. than any other ethnic group. Occurring in 1 in 2,500 to 3,500 newborns within the white population in the U.S. There are about 30,000 people living with CF in the U.S. and more than 70,000 worldwide. It is less common in other ethnic groups, as I've touched on, and there are a few statistics for you, but the prevalence of carriers of the mutation in this gene is actually higher than I would have expected. 1 in 29 Caucasian Americans are carriers of the mutated gene, and additional statistics there for other ethnic groups as well. Physical effects include the biggest issue with cystic fibrosis is the production of a thick and sticky mucus. So mucus serves different purposes all over the body, so a lot of different organs are affected. As far as the predominant symptom that we will see across the CF population is lung issues. So mucus normally lines the airways of the lungs to help trap and transport bacteria out. But when this mucus becomes sticky, it actually can clog the airways and trap bacteria and cause infections. So these infections can lead to some of the symptoms that we know with CF patients, including coughing, wheezing, and lung inflammation, and all of these can lead to permanent damage of the lung, causing fibrosis and cysts, hence the name cystic fibrosis. Another common symptom includes digestive issues, so mucus builds up in the pancreas, preventing it from producing insulin and digestive enzymes, which can lead to diarrhea, malnutrition, poor growth in the child, and can also lead to a form of diabetes called cystic fibrosis related diabetes mellitus. A lot of men will also have congenital bilateral absence of the vas deferens. The vas deferens is a tube that leads from the testes to the urethra and serves to carry sperm out of the body, and when this tube is blocked, it can lead to men being infertile. Here we have a look at the gene. So it is located on chromosome 7 on the long arm, along Q arm at position 31.2. As we can see, it contains over 200,000 base pairs, and the coding sequence for the protein contains almost 5,000 base pairs. So that leads to a lot of possibilities for mutation. So, like many other genes, the CFTR can acquire point mutations, deletions, insertions, frame shift mutations, and missense and nonsense mutations. This gene provides instructions for creating the CFTR protein, which serves as a channel on a cell plasma membrane to transport chloride and sodium in and out of the cell, which also regulates the amount of water that is transported in and out of the cell. So this occurs specifically in cells that produce tears, sweat, digestive enzyme, and mucus. So proper function of the channel would produce each of these functions as a thin, slippery version as the cell is able to regulate the amount of water that is produced within the substance. So when there is a mutation in this gene, then this protein will, it will affect the structure, the function, and the ability of the protein to perform these jobs. So the most common mutation is delta F508, which is a deletion of an amino acid at this position, resulting in a breakdown of the channel, preventing it from even reaching the plasma membrane. CF is an autosomal recessive inherited disorder, which means that the offspring needs to receive 2 recessive mutated genes in order to present with a CF phenotype. And with it being autosomal, we know that it's not located on a sex gene or chromosome. Carriers will contain one defective or mutated gene, but they typically do not show symptoms of the condition themselves. So I wanted to share my connection to CF. I chose to do this project because I have a brother named Jed who had CF. He had the lung affected phenotype, but also had some digestive and nutritional defects as well. He died about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. I guess it's almost 12. At the age of 29 due to CF-related complications, which is kind of crazy because that's how old I am now. So it really kind of puts life into perspective and trying to imagine living with a disorder like that. Here we have a pedigree of how cystic fibrosis can be passed down through a family tree. I have listed pretty much any combination of combinations here. So we have the dominant, homozygous dominant wild type phenotype, or genotype, sorry, and homozygous recessive genotype, and this would be a person with CF. All of these red boxes are people with CF. And then we have the heterozygous carriers here. So 2 heterozygous carriers will have a 1/4 chance that their offspring will be positive for CF. 2 homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive will have a 0 chance that they will have kids with CF, but 100% of them will be carriers. Just as well with the carrier and the homozygous dominant, 0% of their offspring will have CF, but there's a 50% chance of them being carriers. Here we have 2 homozygous recessive CF people, and their offspring will be 100% CF positive as well. There are a bunch of different genetic testing options. So the first one is included in the newborn screening. So the immunoreactive trypsinogen assay is included in the newborn screening we all receive once we're born. And if this result is high, then it may indicate a CF diagnosis, which would indicate a sweat test, which basically just evaluates the components of sweat produced by a infant and can lead to CF diagnosis. There are also genetic tests that can be done during or after the birth of the child to evaluate mutation of the specific gene. And there are also carrier tests available for parents if they might be carriers before they start having kids. So here we have the different treatments available. So airway clearance therapy is the number one. It basically is percussive vests that help to clear mucus out of the lungs to prevent infection. They are also prescribed antibiotics, mucus thinners, nebulizer treatments, and CFTR regulator medication, which is one of the newer medications for this population. It helps to kind of regulate the flow of water in and out of the cells, taking over the job of the defective protein or absent protein. Here we have the future of CF. So the main focus for researchers for finding a cure is to correct the defective genes. So definitely looking into some of the CRISPR things we were learning about earlier this week, seeing if there's anything that can be done to fix the gene, and then we've also seen medications that are trying to do the work of the protein as well. So the only thing with those is, since there are so many variants, there are only a couple medications out that cover just a handful of variants. So working on finding medication that will work for other variants as well. One cool statistic that I really like is that life expectancy back in 1962 for those with CF was 10 years old, which when my brother was diagnosed, he wasn't expected to live past 13, so 29 was pretty good accomplishment, I think. The life expectancy today is 37.5, and another cool statistic is that there are now more adults with the disease than children, which is a new finding within the last couple of years, which is also pretty cool. Researchers think that kids with CF born today will have a life expectancy of 50 years old, with all the advancements in technology and drug development. Wanted to point you in the direction of the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. They have an amazing website, lots of good resources, information, fundraising events. Their website is very extensive, and lots of good information on there. Thank you for listening. I really enjoyed this course and learning about cystic fibrosis. I wish everyone good luck in their endeavors, and thank you for a good semester.